When it comes to NoFap, most guys focus on the wrong aspects, even aspects that make things more difficult for them, way more difficult for them than they actually have to be. And if you do it the old way, it also takes way longer. But recently, I started noticing some very interesting developments in the community, because even though I've been free for 8 years at this point, I go there regularly and just see how things are developing, how things are going. And what I notice is that more and more guys are truly understanding what is important and what you need to focus on to be successful in NoFap. But in order to understand what has changed, we first need to go through a little bit of history of how NoFap developed. Because back when I started in 2015, we still had a very basic understanding of what we need to do to heal our brains. The basic idea simply was to abstain for as long as you can. And that's it. But there are two main problems with that approach. First, you have to passively rely on your brain doing the right thing. But that turns out to be much more difficult than expected. I mean, okay, the process was a little bit more elaborate or a little bit more complicated. At first, you really commit. And you also hope kind of that maybe this time you won't have any urges, or that at the very least they won't be as strong. But then eventually, like always, you get triggered, an urge arises, and even though you fight like hell, you relapse eventually. Most guys go through that cycle many times. And for a lot of them, that means that their streaks are actually getting shorter and not longer. And that actually happens way more often than you would think. And that then crushes their confidence dramatically. So over time, guys realized that they needed to dig deeper. And as a result, a more refined version of NoFap was born. The improvement was a strong focus on healthy habits to build a life that addresses your underlying pains, which was a very smart approach. Guys had developed way more awareness of what was really going on and realized that they used porn to numb deeper pain. But there's still big problems with that approach, because NoFap 2.0 is still very weak when it comes to actively rewiring your brain. And it's extremely difficult to stick to healthy habits if your brain is constantly going crazy. It feels like you're fighting yourself all the time, like some part deep inside of you that you just can't control takes over. So what to do instead? Exactly what worked for me for the past 8 years, and many other guys who also truly broke free that I've talked to over all those years. And all of them had one thing in common. They became really good at two things. The first is about mastering your own nervous system. Because when you become the master of your nervous system, you also become the master of the addiction. To understand why that is, you must first know of something that is called the ADATA patterns. It stands for addiction, depression, anxiety, dissociation, and anger. And understandably, we think of the ADATA patterns as something very negative. But we are understanding more and more that they're not the symptoms of a broken system, a broken human, or a broken you. But instead, that they're the attempt of a system to bring itself back into balance. Wait, what do you mean back into balance? How is addiction bringing me back into balance? It's destroying my life. And yes, very true. But think about it. Under more natural circumstances, the ADATA patterns are actually designed to get you out of a stressful situation or out of an emergency situation. And then they can be very helpful. And the lizard brain, which is responsible for starting the ADATA patterns, is getting a lot of hate recently, especially in the NoFap community. But it helps to not think of it as an enemy that you have to fight, but rather a loyal, very strong, but extremely dumb friend who really wants to help you. If you get this, your entire understanding of what addiction is, how it works, and what you have to do to get out of it completely changes. Think of anger. It makes you seek out the threat and destroy it. But if you do that today, you go to jail. Anxiety makes you run away from a threat. Depression would demotivate you so much that you just stay in your cave. Conserve as much energy as possible and wait for winter to pass by. Why do you think so many people have winter depression? Or that people feel energized when spring comes around? So it's kind of part of a natural cycle even. And addiction and dissociation kind of get you out of this stressful situation by beaming your mind into another place. So at least for the moment you don't notice the pain anymore. So it's extremely important to understand this dynamic. The Adada patterns are responses to get you out of an emergency situation, and they do that by first ramping up your nervous system into fight or flight or freeze or fawn mode. And once the threat is dealt with or has passed by and you're still alive, now the nervous system can calm down again. The trouble is that modern problems have become way too complex to be dealt with those primitive responses. So we need to develop a smarter approach, or what I like to call NOFAP 3.0. And the first step is to learn to calm down your nervous system when you need to. Because if you can calm down your nervous system yourself, your big, loyal, but dumb friend stops trying to use the Adada patterns. So what are some of the best ways to manage your own nervous system? One of the easiest and most powerful ways are breathing techniques like Wim Hof or box breathing. Spending time in nature is also very, very powerful. In general, to get your attention out of your head and into your body, centering, grounding yourself, or doing something that you're highly skilled in, playing an instrument, drawing, some physical skill that you're already good at that takes a lot of your focus. Also, physical contact, hugging, spending time with high quality friends. Or, last but not least, super intense activity, dispersing all the energy in your body until your body force shuts you down. That's why some people say a workout is like a therapy session for them. And once you learn to stay calm, even when a storm is raging on all around you or inside of you, you can now start to actively rewire your brain. And that's when the magic starts to happen. Because instead of getting carried away by your Adada patterns, you now can observe your thoughts and emotions clearly. You stop reacting mindlessly, either in the way of, oh my god, I need to indulge in this urge, or the world is going to explode, or I need to fight this urge with all I got and be super vigilant all the time, which is at the same time also code for a ramped up nervous system 24/7. But instead you can take a step back and process what is really going on, and you will gain way deeper insights into how your mind truly works and what is really going on, like way deep in your subconscious, which stays hidden for most guys because they're just acting on surface level impulses. So in other words, that is how you go from emergency mode to rest and digest. And once you learn that, once you master that, you can then take it even to the next level. Because now you're much more stoic, calmer, grounded, and in control. Now you have the energy and the insights that you need to move forward. Because by processing all the intense emotions, you now have the energy and the insights that you need to build towards your true goals. Goals that you defined with way deeper insights into your own soul and mind. Because most guys that are just staying on the surface level of awareness stay stuck in this constant reaction mode to the more intense emotions like shame, anger, lust, and anxiety. Lust not really an emotion, but for the sake of the argument. So basically they stay a slave to their emotions. But if you learn to process them, if you learn to metabolize them and integrate them, you become much, much, much stronger and can move into the direction that you really want to move. Okay, a quick check-in from me, because while I was editing this, I noticed that maybe what I'm trying to say is not as clear as I want it to be. Because what I'm trying to say, in short, is that most guys I meet do not know how to train their mind, or even know that they can train their mind in very specific ways. And instead, they're mainly relying on their willpower and maybe some external factors like motivational videos, website blockers, and an accountability partner. But the same way you can train your body to do certain moves or to be capable of certain skills, like an MMA fighter or like a ninja, the same way you can train your mind to a very high degree. But most guys are not doing this. They are more like the bar brawler who may have a good haymaker and maybe even is capable of taking a few hits, but they're still winging it. And if you let the bar brawler fight against the ninja, for example, the ninja is going to win almost every time because he can do way more and is way more skilled than just relying on his brute strength. Or in the case of NoFap, you can do way more than just rely on willpower. So train your mind in very specific ways and you become much stronger and much more capable of dealing with addiction, social anxiety, and more. And when you're dealing with something as complex as addiction, willpower can only get you so far. So you need to learn way more powerful mental skills. Alright, I hope that made things clearer. So understanding this process is a game changer. And this is what I and others have done for the last 8 years to really break free. And to not only break free from addictions, for example, but in my case also from intense social anxiety, crippling social anxiety back when I started out. And if you understand this process and know what you're doing, you can rewire your brain much faster than 90 days. And each month I take on a limited amount of guys for coaching, so I can really focus on those that really want to get to the next level. And in the description of the video, you will find a way to contact me to get coaching.